when a child dies, it just shockwaves through a community, right? So in the grief and shock of all of it, I just remember thinking, how did this happen?
Welcome to the In the Arena podcast. My name is Jared Miguez, a co-host on this podcast that brings you the inspiring stories of our clients who are leaders and innovators across different industries in Southeast Louisiana. They are visionary entrepreneurs, savvy real estate professionals, media creators, military business owners, and community champions. And we are going to showcase the remarkable achievements and share their personal stories. Tune in for insightful conversations, valuable lessons, and motivational stories that are going to reveal their secrets to success and offer you insights to help you on your own path. Welcome to In the Arena podcast. Welcome to In the Arena podcast. Really excited to have Kristen Simpson here.
Woo woo.
Real estate agent.
Mm-hmm.
Really good real estate agent.
Multi-passionate woman.
Multi-passionate woman, like she just like to tell us. And today we're going to talk about the foundation that you're a part of. Mm-hmm. One of our pillars is promoting the community and the nonprofits in the community. And I know this is near and dear to your heart. Mm-hmm. And it's something that I wasn't aware of. I played every sport under the book, and I can tell you that growing up, that my coaches probably didn't have the best practices to take care of us if something would have happened.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't care if we got hurt back in the day.
Not nearly as much as they did now. They do now. But I'm excited to tell people about what you have going on. So why don't you talk about the foundation that you're a part of?
Okay, so I am one of the founders of the Living for Burke Foundation in 2012. It was started after my nephew, Burke Cobb, passed away. So he was 14 years old, a multi-sport athlete, played 4 different sports, 6'4", over 200 pounds at 14. Everyone was, They were looking at him for high school football. And he went to a football practice in the summer. It was in July. And did fine at practice. Any normal practice, came in to play a pickup game of basketball and couldn't drive yet, so he's waiting on his mom to pick him up. He was so young. And he basically was running with it. 25 of his friends were on the basketball court. He went to do a layup and just collapsed. Well, Burke was really funny, and his friends thought he was joking around. He was up 1 minute, upright, and then just fell down the next. And so everyone ran over to him, and then it was obvious that he was in trouble. He wasn't okay. He was with a coach that was on the Code Blue team for the school, so should have known immediately what to do, but unfortunately, he did not act. And he left Burke in the gym with all these kids, high school kids, and went outside to call 911 and never did CPR. Burke suffered a sudden cardiac arrest. His heart basically stopped beating, and he lost oxygen to his brain. Paramedics arrived and started CPR. They airlifted him from the high school, but he died. So a tragic story when the school had 4 to 5 AEDs in a closet, literally about 100 feet from where he lay on the floor, but they did not have the key to open the closet.
Oh, wow.
So CPR, first and foremost, and a shock from an AED would have saved his life. Almost certainly if it would have been in the first 3 minutes after collapse. So you can imagine, I have 2 sons. My brother's son, had 3 sons. We were very, very close to their family. It was just devastating for our family, for my kids, for his kids, the community. When a child dies, it just shockwaves through a community, right? So in the grief and shock of all of it, I just remember thinking, how did this happen? Like at first we didn't know what had happened. We thought it was a heat stroke, or we didn't know. Well, his heart was enlarged, which is called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, HCM for short. It is the number 1 cause of death of athletes.
That's crazy.
And at 14, he looked perfectly healthy. You would never have known anything was wrong with him. And that's the problem with this and other heart abnormalities, is that you can look fine, but you're anything but fine. And 80% of the time, the first symptom is death. So there's no way to prevent this if you have symptoms. Now, you may have a symptom. If a kid does have a symptom, it could be shortness of breath, but you're exercising.
Yeah.
Okay. You could feel lightheaded. Well, if you have pads on and it's over 100 degrees outside, it's hard to distinguish for kids because they don't know something's wrong. If they should feel something like that, they're not really going to know.
Yeah.
So I think that the most important message that I could get to parents of kids, coaches, anyone that's around kids, is that you just do everything you can to prevent it, but most importantly, be prepared to act when it happens. You have to have a cardiac chain of survival in place on every basketball court, every football field, every lacrosse field, because this happens.
Yeah.
1 in 300 people in the United States have a heart abnormality.
Yeah.
Think about that. When you're in an auditorium of people, 1 in 300.
1 in 300.
Doesn't necessarily mean it will kill you. What that means, though, if you're a coach, if you coach a high school, how many kids are on your team? 1 in 300 of those kids has a problem. More than likely, they don't know it, right? Yeah. So I think that we have to do better at being prepared when this happens. So it's really not, it's simple, but it's not easy, I guess, as the saying goes, because you need an AED in these gyms. There has to be at least one AED.
And what's an AED?
It is an automated external defibrillator. So it is what you use to shock someone's heart back into rhythm. Now, if your heart stops, so there's a sudden cardiac arrest versus a heart attack. A heart attack is more of, I like to say, a plumbing problem, and a sudden cardiac arrest is an electrical problem. So with an arrest, your heart just stops. So you immediately lose oxygen to the brain. So CPR, just pumping the chest, keeps that oxygen flowing until paramedics arrive.
Gotcha.
However, if you've got a defibrillator, an AED on site, anyone can use it. I mean, we teach kids to do this in elementary school, junior high. The machine will tell you what to do. You just grab it off the wall. So if someone drops, especially if they're exercising, they immediately are unconscious. You want to shake them, see if they're, conscious. If not, you tell someone, grab them, call 911, tell someone else, go find an AED, see if there is one, and then you start CPR. You just start pumping their chest. You don't have to do breaths. Just push hard and fast in the center of the chest until help arrives. Either until the AED comes, you open it up, it will tell you exactly what to do. It will say, put the pads on the patient's chest. It shows you where to put them. And then it will tell you if a shock is advised. If the person doesn't need to be shocked, you won't shock them. It will not shock someone that doesn't need it. A lot of people are afraid of these machines. Oh, well, that's dangerous. It will never shock someone with a normal heart rhythm. You can't hurt them. You can only help them. So that's what we teach: CPR use, AED use. We do community trainings so people won't be afraid of these machines.
Yeah. So
I've already learned so much.
Yeah, no, so the
amazing.
CPR is keeping the blood flowing
right to the brain.
Mm-hmm. So that's why the CPR is important.
Right.
And then if the AED
AED
works, how is it going to immediately
instantly? You may have to shock them multiple times. Sometimes one shock, it will bring the heart back into rhythm. Right? So we hope we never have to do that. And we all hope we never have to do that. But I could show you video after video, because sometimes gyms have cameras of people, girls playing volleyball. They drop, the coach comes, grabs it, and they shot and they revive them. I just had an experience the other day where a nurse practitioner told me he saved someone's life at the gym. This happens at the gym. It happens everywhere, but it especially happens in sports. So why sports though? Is it the heat combined with the physical activity? Is it physical activity in general? Like, is there so there's an underlying condition there. There's something there that is triggered by different events. So I think for Burke that day, it was July. It was football practice. It was exerting. His heart was enlarged. So it was probably it was not pumping at its capacity. And then all of those things were like a deadly combination that caused his heart was just overwhelmed. So it's a lot of times it is a condition that people are not aware that they have, which is why getting your heart screened is so important. Yeah. So we were talking about two things, right? Like if you have somebody who is in a situation where they need to medical attention and they're unconscious, the two things to help them to be able to get help to them is the AED and the CPR. Those are the two things. So think call, push, shock. Yeah. Right? Call 911, push their chest, get the AED. So that's for somebody who has had an event. They are unconscious, you need to help them. But there is ways to prevent these types of things or to be aware that there could be a problem, which is the foundation is doing two things. You're teaching people how to save people's lives in these situations, but what are y'all doing to help people that are trying to become aware that they even have a problem to be concerned with? So the mission of Living for Burke is both awareness and prevention, right? Awareness piece we just talked about. Prevention, we perform and work with other groups to perform EKGs on student athletes. And in our opinion, every kid is an athlete. Doesn't matter if they're, because people think, oh, Kristen, I don't need to they're not an athlete. All kids are athletes. They run, they jump, they all the things, right? So we really focus on kids ages, let's say 10 to 22. And anytime your heart is still growing, it's a good idea to get screened if you can. You can do it multiple times, every 2-3 years in your major years of growth. We do community-based, low-cost screenings. Typically, our screenings cost $15 to $20. And we put EKG tabs on the chest of these girls and boys, and then we capture the EKG and send the results to a pediatric cardiologist. They read them. We send the results back to the parents. Right after Burke died, within about 4 weeks, we did our first screening. The first time I spoke about this was at his funeral. We made a decision very early on, after we were still obviously the grief and shock of it, but after the beginnings of it wore off, we thought we have to do something about this. We had no idea this was possible. We didn't know this could happen. And so the more we learned about it, the more that we realized or heard that up to at least 10,000, up to 20,000 kids die every year of this.
Wow.
The problem is there's no centralized death registry to really capture these deaths. The death happens and then time passes, and by the time the autopsy comes back, the media is focused on something else. So you hear about the death, but you don't always hear about the why. So we at the beginning got buses because we didn't have our own machines yet. We hired screening buses and screened his whole football team. And
did y'all find any other kids?
Not that day, not that initial screening, but we have found at least one kid every screening since. Sometimes more than one. So the feeling of that is knowing when you pack up that day, you just save someone's child. Yeah. It's a crazy feeling. And we've had multiple kids have surgeries, have maybe not even have surgeries, but have an awareness that they had something that they need to be aware or need to share with people, that they play sports for, or their parents or whoever. So it's been an amazing journey, and I'm still shocked when we find these things. And everyone says in the beginning, they said, "Oh, it's so rare." It's not rare.
Yeah. No, 1 in 300 is not rare.
Not
right?
rare
But that's what you hear. Oh, it's rare to die of this. I could rattle off 20 names right now of parents that I know since starting this work. They would reach out to me. We've helped other organizations get started doing the same thing. And we partner with big organizations. So we can do really big screenings. We can do small screenings. So it's just important. We set up a permanent screening here in St. Tammany Parish. It is the only one in the state of Louisiana. And I want to give a shout out to St. Tammany because I went to multiple hospitals and they all blew me off. St. Tammany understood my mission and said, we want to be a part of this. Wow. They set up a permanent screening called the Living for Burke screening. They do an EKG, an echo, and a blood pressure check for $150. It may be up to $175 now. So I want to just say that, but no insurance required. And they screen, I believe it's 12 to 22. You just call the outpatient pavilion, and it is a permanent screening in Burke's memory. And
wow. That's wonderful.
They were amazing. They are a great community partner. They care about our kids. Yeah. And they're the only ones that said yes, and they're still doing it.
I feel like this should be part of their physical.
That's what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm. Well, it should be. And I won't say the name, but I have gone to local high schools to allow me to be at the end of the line, and the answer was no.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So, all right, I want to connect you with Sodamore Hospital Foundation, because this is something, even if the hospital doesn't want to do it, that we can do through the foundation for the hospital. I think that would be amazing. But I mean, having a daughter, my kids are so active. Mm-hmm. Not only do they just have all the energy, but they're just naturally athletic. And sometimes you watch them and you get excited for them because they're pushing themselves and you want to facilitate that. But I would be lying if I said I don't go to bed at night. Like, are we pushing their little bodies too much, right? Mm-hmm. And when you think that there's something that's unknown, and you say, people say, oh, it's so uncommon. It's kind of like buying a car, right? And so you have that sense of awareness. You buy a car and you're like, oh, these are everywhere. And I never saw them before. Mm-hmm. Same thing with these type of conditions and what you hear about.
And it's crazy because just recently, so Burke died in 2012. This was in Prairieville. About 2 to 3 weeks ago, a girl in middle school died across the street. Same situation. She was in the gym. She died in the gym, just like Burke. And it's just, you would hope that schools, in every school, so think about where kids congregate, where they learn, where we worship, where they play sports. Those are the areas, because then you have in schools, like 25% of a community on average is in a school on a given day. Either they're dropping someone off, they're picking up, they're going to a program. So schools are really an important place to have an appropriate number of AEDs. You may be saving a teacher. You could be saving a grandparent or even a student. Businesses that have a lot of people coming in and out. Like we said, think of 300 is all you need.
Yeah.
300, you've got one. So I just think that it's an awareness of.
I mean, I kind of want some here.
Yeah.
So tell me about
I've
the
thought
resources.
about it before when I've been here.
Yes. No, I would
I've
love
thought
that.
about it.
Like, what are the resources available for us to be able to have an AED here?
So anyone can purchase an AED. The price, I believe, now I can get a nonprofit price. They're not that expensive. I would say probably $1,500. And you want to put
You're
it
saving a life.
You want to put it in a case on the wall. You want a 3D sign so it's easy to see. And the only thing you have to do is just make sure the batteries are good, right? So when the battery goes out in an AED, and this is all the parents that are listening, this is what you can do. When you go to gyms, when you go to your kids, find the AED and look in the box. If you see a red X, that's a problem. That means the battery's dead, right? There have been kids that have died because they had an AED and they went to grab it and the battery was dead. So the batteries do last a long time. We have 2 AEDs at my house, and I think one of the batteries has lasted 10 years.
Oh, wow.
So some of them last longer than others, but you have to have someone that checks.
Right.
Because the last thing you want is to have the device and not have it working. I mean, I can't imagine how horrible that would be.
Right.
So we could look in. I have been talking about this since 2012. I think a lot of people hide from me when they see me coming at schools because I ask the questions, but I want everyone to be empowered. You have kids.
Yeah.
They're so important to you. They mean the world to you, right?
I'm like doing a scan in my head of the girls' gym. Like, do they have one? I need to check. If it's not a requirement, I could donate that to the school.
And we as parents trust that we give our kids to these people that are going to take care of them. And generally they do a great job, but are they aware of emergency situations to take care of our kids in those types of situations? So yeah, I mean, bringing awareness to this is super important. I mean, I know growing up for me, I was sports 365 days a year. I'd go to football practice, then I'd go to the gym, just like Burke did. And I wasn't a basketball player at all, but I'd go to play football, then I'd go to the...
He wasn't really good at basketball either, to be honest.
I was like, he sounded like a big boy for
he was
basketball.
he was a little lanky, but yeah.
I'd go play football, and then right after that, go to the gym and lift weights. And I mean, I never had any awareness that this. I was invincible at that point. Like, you couldn't tell me anything was ever going to be wrong with me at that point in my life. But I mean, the coaches would push you, and it'd be hot, like you said, and definitely something that would have been devastating to us as kids, seeing one of your buddies have that happen to them. Couldn't imagine.
Our community's lost so many children recently, so you're absolutely right. It's shockwaves for sure is an understatement. I mean, the beauty that I find behind it, we have Emma, we had Avery, we have Christian, all from our local church, family, school community that we've lost in the last few years. And the beauty behind it is the foundations and awareness that are being brought to every one of those scenarios and the giving back to the community. So we have to commend y'all for doing that
Thank you.
for so long. And I mean, even doing it today, I can hear the passion in your voice when you're talking about it. And that still has to be a hard conversation to relive and bring to light. But I am already educated on something that I did not know before. And I do. I feel the need to go into the community, make sure that the kids are safe. And I'll be getting my kid checked.
Good.
It's something that I feel that it should be of the utmost importance for our schools. I know that schools are taxed. They have a lot on them, but this is a basic. We're talking about safety, health and safety. If a child dies at your school, what else matters? You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it should be so important.
Without a doubt.
I've had schools when this first happened. It's like, just like you said, when you start looking for something, it's everywhere. I knew nothing about this before. Not anything I would have ever wanted to learn about necessarily, but once you know, you can't unsee it. And so then you start going to schools or events and you start noticing that there are no AEDs, or maybe in your school of like 1,400 kids, there's one AED. So I want to say this because it's important. Time matters. When someone goes down, right, you have 10 minutes. Your chance of living or surviving this goes down 10% per minute up to 10 minutes. but you ideally want to shock the person if you have an AED within the first 3 to 5 minutes, because the brain is completely deprived of oxygen. So that's why timing is important. That's why the number of AEDs is important.
Yeah.
Because if you only have one AED in the front of the school and someone collapses on the playground, how long is it going to take for you to know there's a problem and get the AED to the student? So these places need multiple AEDs.
Right.
There's a really big bill right now at this national level for funding for AEDs for schools. They're really lobbying hard for it, but it's been on the books for a couple of years, and I'm really hoping that it will pass, because I think it could be beneficial for all the schools in our entire country to be outfitted with the AEDs that they need. But it's always about the money.
Well, I just think like all the fundraisers that we do for our kids. I mean, honestly, how much do we get hit up?
Yeah.
I'm always like, people ask me what the tuition is at school, and I'm like, do you want like the after the school year amount, or do you just want the check that I write in the beginning to start? So we get requests all year long to raise money for the playground, for more books. And again, all of it's important, but I can imagine getting in front of a group of parents at the PTC meeting and saying, okay, amongst all of us, we have 1,000 families here. Do y'all want the safety for your kids?
Three kids in this, with the parents in this room, are going to be at risk.
Correct.
There's 1,000 parents in there.
And the 1 out of 300 ratio, correct. And I just can't imagine that we wouldn't be able to fund that as parents. I know that's something I would want to do.
Yeah.
Well, and coaches sometimes in schools, it shocks you. Sometimes you don't understand the hesitation behind it. Sometimes it's a fear of liability.
Yeah.
We do have a Good Samaritan law in Louisiana. I mean, you can't be held liable for trying to save someone's life. I mean, it's not going to happen. But I think there's a fear, and I'm so glad that they push now hands-only CPR, because that was hesitation of not wanting to do CPR on someone, mouth to mouth. It's, you're not sure what to do. This is easy. It's really easy. And training people in CPR, I'm participating in training this month with a kid that's getting his Eagle Scout badge. We're doing a community-based CPR training. It's super easy. I've got dummies. If y'all have people, I've got dummies. We'll get together. We can have a CPR. It's easy to train people to do it. Yeah. And it's a skill that's life-saving. And 70% of the time, this happens at home. It happens in your home. So 70% of the time, you'll be saving someone that you love.
Jeez.
So it's important to learn it, to know it. And I will say, too, one of the things that we've done is worked with the AHA to get a law passed in 2014 called the Burke Cobb Act, where all kids have to learn CPR in public high school as a graduation requirement. So when you see the AHA raising money, some of their money funds Living for Burke kits for schools. So it's a whole pack of like 10 dummies or something that they use with this for this law, to teach kids CPR in high school.
Very cool.
Love that.
And we've had kids that have saved lives learning it too.
With the AED?
With just the CPR. Had cool. one kid, his name was Bo. He learned CPR at Zachary High School as a result of the Burke Cobb Act, went home from school, baseball practice, and found his nephew pinned under a welding table. He was 6. He lifted the table off of him and started CPR that he had just learned at school, and Carter lived, and it was on Burke's birthday.
Oh.
Why am I tearing?
I know. And Carter and I have pictures together. He has come with me, and we have told the story, and then it's like, and here's Carter. He's 6. Wow. He's like a teenager now.
Holy cow.
But he lived because this is how you're making a difference.
Yeah.
Right.
This child is alive because we took something really, really bad and said, what can we do? Because it feels awful to grieve and not do anything with it. And I know some people, and I'm not judging, some people just can't do it. I'm just a different breed. I just am like anger is a really good motivator sometimes in the beginning. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's part of grieving.
It is. It is part of the process. So we knew we had to do something. And as a result, you can say, I'm so glad. It's been hard, but I'm so glad we did what we did, because I can name names of kids that would not be alive, which is why you think you're kind of, there's never a good reason for why something happens.
Right.
But you think as a result of that event, good things can still happen. And these kids are alive because of it.
Well, that's his legacy. I mean, we talk a lot about legacy at our firm, and Burke's legacy is to bring awareness to save kids' lives, and his name will live on for a very long time because of the things that y'all are doing to make sure that other kids are protected from his story and thing. And I think that's amazing. So it's amazing that this impact is being made from our local Southeast Louisiana. How do people get in touch with the foundation? How do they make an impact? How do they volunteer? Tell us about that.
So we have a website, livingforburke.org. That's just living number 4 Burke. You can fill out a contact form there. The email comes to me. It's my husband, myself, my brother, and sister-in-law. But mostly it's me in terms of just just like the setting up of the screenings and handling communications and all of that. So they can reach out to me. And there are some exciting things that are happening that can make screening much more accessible. There's a company called QT Medical that now has disposable EKG strips that they're working on. They're a little more expensive, but probably like less than $20. And if there's a remote school, they can actually, if they have a nurse or someone that can put the tabs on the kids, a whole kit can be mailed to that school. They can put those, each child has their own strip. They can do the EKGs, mail the equipment back, and get the results. So it's a company that we work with out of Florida, a group that we helped them get started. They're much bigger than we are now because we have other jobs and this is what they do full time. But they just got a grant to screen like 100,000 kids. But
amazing.
They work with us, and this is really exciting to me because we could reach, because it's just me, so how can we reach more people? This is a great way. So that's something that is doable right now. If there are people in areas outside of our area that want to do it, they can reach out to me and I can put them in contact with who we play for, the group that we work with. And they are doing this right now. They are doing like remote screening events, basically mailing equipment and sending it back and getting whole teams checked.
That's amazing.
Perfect.
So are y'all raising money for the foundation?
We charge a small amount for the screenings, but we don't do a lot of fundraising. I mean, we always, if we get donations, we absolutely apply them. Like if kids can't pay, so we are a 501c3, so they can donate. Every penny, we don't have any salaries or overheads. Really, everything we do goes right back into screening kids or helping people have access to training and EKGs.
Which is the point of the real estate still being a thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
So well, that's very cool. Well, I mean, look, if anybody that we
I have a
can
list.
connect you with, I mean,
Ready.
I know Lauren's thinking about how we can connect you, and we're looking forward to promoting it with the foundation, letting people know what's going on, and we're going to get ourselves an AED for our offices, and just in the case that something's needed.
Because Jared likes to throw parties.
Yeah.
I think we should have a CPR training. I've got the
was another thing
video. I've got the dummies. All we need is
So we
the
have a
people.
retreat coming up.
All we
I
need
would
is
love
the
for you
people.
to come to it.
I'll do it.
Yeah, that's great.
I'll do it.
Well, cool.
Everybody in the office trained.
Yeah. Well, you have anything else you want to say about the foundation before we hop off?
No, I think that's it. I think that I would just encourage all parents, if your kids are ages 12 to 22, if you don't know where to take them to screen, you can always take them to St. Tammany. That's year round. It's $150. I can't think of a better way to spend $150 than to know your child's heart is safe to play sports. So if you don't know where to go there. Just call the outpatient pavilion. You can set it up, make an appointment, and take them to get screened, and then you won't have to wonder, and then you'll know.
That's great.
So that would be the most important thing. Screen your teens, as we say. It's really important.
Very cool. Well, we appreciate you coming on, hearing more about the story.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Kristen.